Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for listening. Today is the 20th of June, 2019. You might have noticed that I did post a review of 1984, George Orwell's 1984, a couple of days ago, but I did remove it. And the reason for that was because I don't think that I did it justice. I think I was extremely apprehensive to start because it is such an important book, and I think I just kept on stalling and stalling, and it ended up just being a bunch of ums and ahs, which I do very often, and I just didn't think it was worth it. And I, like I said, I didn't think it did it justice. Right, today I'm not going to do a book review. I thought I'd just maybe do an audio log, and sort of my general thoughts, I guess. And it's very interesting. When I recently had a very long, interesting conversation, or a series of conversations with a friend of mine. I used to study with. We've been friends for 10 years now. I was best man at his wedding, and I think the reason we stayed friends for so long after college is the fact that we really like debates, arguments, and usually about philosophical arguments, and that's extremely good and exciting and great. Like I really do like a good argument. If you can sustain a good argument with someone that you disagree with for longer than, let's say, 20 minutes, then you have a brilliant conversation going, I would say, because um both of you have contradicting beliefs or ideas on a certain topic. If it might be fundamental. It might be on the semantics or the details. But if you can have a disagreement and a conversation and hold that for about 20 minutes without starting to call each other names and add homonyms, then I think that is one of the most beautiful things, or most enjoyable things, I think, that I've experienced in life. It's not easy, but it's profound because a lot of disputes with people that you have, it's short, it's uncomfortable, and it sort of just lingers in the air until you sort of go and introspect, and that person goes and introspects, and maybe 2 or 3 years later you're both having a beer or a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or something, and then you sort of start chatting again, and both of you sort of come to the conclusion that, hey, you know what, like, it was actually just a bunch of bullshit that we disagreed on, and I although I disagreed with you, I did realize that I was wrong in some places, and then you become friends again. Or, well, I think you know what I'm trying to say. The reason I'm bringing this up is that I've been enjoying it, because I think it was mainly focused on philosophical points, which are obviously sort of the most sort of fundamentals, like good, what's wrong and ethical and good and bad, and does it matter? If so, why? And I think as South Africans, and myself as a white South African, although I'd like to do a DNA test, maybe I'm not as white as I think I am, and then I can start gaining some sort of my some mixed race like points, right? Because that's sort of like the international standard now. The more oppressed you are, the more advantage you get, and obviously, straight white people are the most advantaged. Obviously, all of these straight white people are just balling it up and having great fun all over the place and just have money forever. Yeah, okay. I need to try not go on too many tangents, I think. When I was younger, when I was much younger, I used to question things from a very, very, very young age. Before I went to primary school, I used to ask quite big questions that people were uncomfortable answering, and a lot of the answers I got from various people, not just parents or so on. My parent or my mother was for the most part extremely supportive in any sort of like endeavor or quest or something that I'm interested in to go down. She's always been extremely supportive in that sense. But it's difficult to be a very young kid and asking questions. And I didn't have a father at that point. And in retrospect now, I don't know if that's actually turned out in my life a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe a little bit of both. Like it's always, I guess, there's some sort of a balance in everything. I think if you speak to someone long enough, or you become more than just acquaintances, you become friends and you start sharing your own life, the deep parts of your life, then we quickly realize that people, all of us, have some story to tell. This depiction of the perfect life and the envious life, you see on perfect social media and all of this, it's an illusion. Everything is an illusion. The reason I'm bringing up my childhood is that while grappling with all of these questions and I don't think it goes without saying, so I will say it. I've been an atheist since a very young age. I'd say I was a confident atheist by the time I was about 12, 13, around there. Might have been sort of agnostic in a sense, or questioning like this and that by it, but by a little, like early teens, I was fairly confident in and maybe confident isn't the correct word. I was comfortable with the idea that and I think this is probably the fundamental thing with religion, is that we all want to believe that there's something after, we die. And I think at a very early age, I was I sort of accepted that. Like I'm very scared and afraid of dying. Just like any other person, I think. Well, there are obviously exceptions on people that are unafraid of death, but I am. Because I know it's absolute, right? And it's also, Jordan Peterson he recently said, someone kept asking him, so do you believe in God, Jordan Peterson? Because a lot of his talking points are on sort of religious sort of archetypes and religion and Christianity in particular. And he doesn't like answering the question whether you believe in God or the written word of the Bible in the Old Testament and so on. And he got quite emotional about it, but he gave quite a decent answer. He said, well, who are you to claim that you believe in God and live the way you do? Because if you think about it, if you truly believe in God, then you would live your life in an absolute orthodox or perfect way, if you truly believed. But saying that you believe and believing that you believe is not the same as actually believing, right? Because you would act totally different if you literally honestly thought that God was watching every single thing that and he knew all of your thoughts, and you have free will, and some of our lives are better than others, habit wise. I have terrible habits that I'm trying to work on. I could be in a much worse situation, that is absolutely sure, but I'm not. But I'm also, obviously, I know that I can better myself, and that's a good goal, and I'm trying. I'm trying to be honest, and I'm trying to sort of be active and do things and engage, and which is why I'm speaking to you guys. at the moment. I might have said this twice now, but the reason. So the reason I brought up my early years and thinking about things is that I knew I was young. I knew I was immature. I knew I wasn't an adult yet. Even when I was 25, I knew that, I'm still not an adult. You can feel it. Like, legally you're an adult, but maybe mentally, or, I don't know, psychologically, and you get the vibe. Like, some people are still like, I'm 30 at the moment. And sometimes I feel like shit, like, I'm not 25 anymore, and I can feel it. Not necessarily physically, and visually, like losing hair and going gray a little bit in the beard, but the main thing, and it was an extreme disappointment for me. I think specifically recently, extremely disappointing. When you're young, you're young, and when you are going to become older and wiser, and you believe that by the time you reach this category of people in their, in their adulthood, let's say between 25 and like 90, not that they aren't wise people at 20 and 21 and so on. Like, I've met exceedingly wise people that were like in their teens still, but it's still, it changes. It's different. And I always thought that I'd reach an age, maybe 25 or 26 or like 30, especially 30, and then all of a sudden, like, everything sort of, all the cog wheels come together, and now the machine can run nicely, and everyone sort of gets it and understands everything, and the adults are always they're wise, and they know how things should work and how they work, and all of this, and it's just that sudden realization that absolutely no one has any fucking idea what's going on. Like, some people are more clued up than others, but for the most part, like, just look at how the countries run, and every other nation in the entire world, everyone has their bags of problems. It's extremely strange to me. I feel like I have solutions, right? But my solutions are non-aggressive solutions. And how am I going to convince people that have very radical views? And maybe I'm a radical as well, for personal liberty and freedom, and the individual, and self-ownership and responsibility, and all of these things. To me, they make sense. They're not the easiest. I know that. I'm not rich. I'm not like a factory owner, bourgeoisie, monocle wearing capitalist. I'm struggling, right? But if you think about what all of this means in the bigger picture, and you start seeing the malice and like the evil that's going on. And for the past about, let's say, 5 years or 4 or 5 years, I've been screaming and shouting and being very loud and pissing people off, and I've made enemies, and in the process I've made friends as well. But I've reached the point where what am I gonna do? Like, these, especially in South Africa, these doctrines of Karl Marx, collectivism, communism, socialism, Marxism, it's so rooted in South Africa. And we have things like facts that in 1904 there were approximately 6 million people in South Africa, and just over 100 years later you have 55, 56. And I think the white population, for example, has stayed quite stagnant, right? And so they were, okay, well, stagnant, obviously it's grown, but it hasn't grown by hundreds of percentages or tens of many of percentages, and things like these I think matter, and no one's talking about it. I'm talking about seizing land and stuff. I can't even feel frustrated and angry about these things anymore, because I've just realized how ridiculous it is, and how ridiculous it is that other people, for the most part, the fringe, loud people, do not notice this. They want bloodshed, they want violence, and I think they're very much driven by hatred, pure hatred, and lust for power and vengeance. And it won't end well. I was looking at the whole thing just from an outsider's perspective with Steve Hofmeyr and the response of like the radical black community, which are sort of Marxists, racists, and maybe even fascists, like the BLF and so on. And honestly, I don't fucking care. Like I don't know much about Steve Hofmeyr. I know he's a country singer, and he probably has about 300 offspring or something like that. Like, you know, I can make fun of the guy. I don't necessarily like his music, but I'm starting to understand where this whole outrage is coming from. Not from the media side, but from him and his fans. They are under attack. Objectively, they are under attack. And you cannot expect the person or the animal that you are attacking to just remain placid and not do anything about it, or not fight back in like linguistically, you know, and metaphorically. But the chances of there being physical attacks and violence is quite big. And just the sheer double standards and everything, and these extremists, these populists are creating these situations. You fucking Marxists have made Steve Hofmeyr relevant. You have made this drama relevant because you have caused it. What else did you expect to happen? Honestly, what else did you expect to happen? I can't see anything good coming out of this. But from what I've seen from these extremists, is that they bundle me, who doesn't give a fuck about all of the shit that's going on between Steve Hofmeyr and the Afrikaans community. Well, I care, obviously, because, well, mainly because I am arbitrarily just thrown into that same category by these extremists because I am white. That's it. I don't even feel passionate anymore about combating this, because I can only see it going one way, and that is the absolute destruction of South Africa, of the economy, because there's no other way that it will go if this trend continues. Hopefully the trend won't continue, then we won't go down a very dark, terrible path. These idiots think that, oh yeah, they can just, start attacking Steve Hofmeyr and there's a couple of 100 burgers and we'll just shoot them. You guys are fucking retarded if you think that. I think a couple of thousand of those guys that are motivated, they're out there, that are listening to you, Julius Malema and Msekama, they will cause more damage than you can comprehend, and they are capable of doing it. And I'm thinking, well, speaking out about it now, like I'm trying, like I'm just documenting my thoughts, really. But what can I do? What can I do? The extremists have carved out the path. I can just be neutral, or not neutral, but just placid and quiet. But if push comes to shove, and and the Afrikaner is basically the Jew in Nazi Germany at this point. right? Like that is sort of where it's leading. The scapegoat, the problem race that needs to be extinguished or exterminated, and after that, then we can have a national socialist utopia, which is fascism, by the way. And yeah, and it won't work. Either way, it won't work. It's gonna collapse. So, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm observing at this point, and nothing is surprising me. I'm not getting surprised. If civil war breaks out tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised. Am I afraid? No. Am I depressed and sad about it? Absolutely. I'm sick and tired of being discriminated against. Spoke to a friend of mine, his son, like, what the fuck is his son going to do when he grows up? Because he's a straight white boy. What future does he have in this country? He has the potential to contribute an unlimited amount of intellectual and whatever wealth to this country. But he's going to leave because it's better for him, and it's going to be worse for us. Ever heard of the brain drain? I think I'm going to leave it over there. I don't know what this was. If you hear it, then thank you for listening, and if you've reached this far, I double thank you, I guess. Like and subscribe, and let's just stay in touch. Because we can't deny the reality any longer. We absolutely can, but it's gonna be worse. It's gonna be worse. The outcome at the end of the day will just be worse. There is a point, I believe, where you can resist, where you have the moral and ethical gold medal to resist and stand up and say, no, this is unacceptable. And if they say, no, well, it's unacceptable that you say it's unacceptable, then we have a fucking problem. And I'm ready for that problem to happen, pretty much. Because this is a fucking tragedy what's going on. Extremely depressing, actually. Anyways, listeners, have a good evening. Things aren't that bad, I think, but they can become, and they are becoming very quickly. But okay, that's enough said. Have a good evening. Thank you very much for listening.